Luxury apartment building continues as pandemic rages. April 1st, 2020. Luxury apartment building in Palo Alto, California continues as the coronavirus pandemic rages, despite a seeming updated shelter in place order explicitly banning residential construction. This is a picture across the street from where I live in Palo Alto, California. This is a luxury apartment complex under construction, and you can see that construction is continuing today, April 1st, 2020, over 2 weeks since the original shelter-in-place order, which, despite its apparent wording, somehow did not apply to luxury apartment construction projects and a wide range of home and residential construction that, by no reasonable definition, would be considered essential or an immediate emergency need. This is the original shelter-in-place order from the health officer of the county of Santa Clara, March 16th, 2020. I've taken out the section that deals with home construction and housing construction. So this is part of the section that defines what's considered essential that people can do to leave their residence. For purposes of this order, individuals may leave their residence to provide any services or perform any work necessary to the operations and maintenance of, quote, essential infrastructure, unquote, including, but not limited to, public works construction, construction of housing, parenthesis, in particular affordable housing or housing for individuals experiencing homelessness, end parenthesis. And I'm not going to cover all of the other items. The relevant one here is housing. Most people would probably interpret this as allowing only affordable housing or housing for individuals experiencing homelessness, for which there's some good reasons in a pandemic or perhaps in general. However, that's not the way it worked. This is last week. This luxury apartment construction project across the street continued with no apparent pauses or delay from then until today. You can see a large number of workmen here working on the project. And in fact, this has been going on throughout Northern California. I personally have seen a couple of other cases during some times that I was out. And also, here we go. This is the kind of thing being reported in our local websites, newspapers, etc. Northern California shelter-in-place orders exempt most construction. In fact, despite the wording, they appear to be allowing all sorts of residential construction projects, luxury home projects, many of these things which have any essential infrastructure function. On March 31st, yesterday, March 31, 2020, they issued a new order. And the relevant section, I'm going to go through it just because this is much more specific and seems to clearly exclude things like luxury apartment construction projects. So it says construction, but only of the types listed in this subparagraph below. Projects immediately necessary to the maintenance, operation, or repair of essential infrastructure. Projects associated with healthcare operations, including creating or expanding healthcare operations, provided that such construction is directly related to the COVID-19 response. Affordable housing that is or will be income restricted, including multi-unit or mixed-use developments containing at least 10% income restricted units. Public works projects if specifically designated as an essential governmental function by the lead governmental agency. Shelters and temporary housing, but not including hotels or motels. Projects immediately necessary to provide critical, non-commercial services to individuals experiencing homelessness, elderly persons, persons who are economically disadvantaged, and persons with special needs. Construction necessary to ensure that existing construction sites that must be shut down under this order are left in a safe and secure manner, but only to the extent necessary to do so, and construction or repair necessary to ensure that residences and buildings containing essential businesses are safe, sanitary, or habitable to the extent such construction or repair cannot reasonably be delayed. That certainly sounds like it excludes luxury apartment complexes such as the one across the street from me and many others around here. This order shall become effective at 11:59 p.m. on March 31st, 2020, and will continue to be in effect until 11:59 p.m. on May 3rd, 2020, or until it is extended, rescinded, superseded, or amended in writing by the health officer. So this order should be enforced today, April 1st, 2020. This is the local reporting on this new order. And this is a report from Bay City News, April 1st, 2020. And the relevant point is the county's new shelter-in-place orders add new restrictions, including halting all non-essential construction projects. This is the entire picture. I have quite a number of other pictures taken today. These workmen seem to be bringing what look like piping for plumbing into the complex. There's all sorts of stuff going on here, banging and many people up in the structure and doing various things. It certainly looked to me, and I'm not a construction person, but it certainly looked to me like they were just continuing to work on the project. It didn't really look like the kind of stuff you would be doing if you were sort of shutting the project down and mothballing it. This is just not affordable housing. It should be pretty obvious from the picture, but this is a very expensive neighborhood. It is a densely populated neighborhood with many people who are now sheltering in place in apartments and homes next to this apartment complex under construction. It has many people, many families, many children. It has quite a number of elderly people all in this area. They're elderly people in the apartment complex I'm in, so they're right across the street from this construction project. It does not appear in any way essential. Our neighborhood is extremely prosperous. So this is only a few minutes walk away is a McLaren dealership. And for those who are not familiar with a McLaren, it's an extremely expensive car. And it kind of markets itself as, well, if you're bored with your Ferrari, you can get a McLaren to be even more cool. And these are, I think, $200,000, $300,000 cars here. This is a very prosperous neighborhood. This is by no reasonable definition affordable housing. If somehow this complex qualifies as affordable housing, that appears completely ridiculous. That's not what it is. There are numerous of these projects around the area that are in the midst of construction, and they're aimed at well-paid employees of companies like Apple and Google and several others in the area in Mountain View and in Palo Alto. So this video was produced on April 1st, 2020. I will probably post some more about this if it turns out they do shut down in the next couple of days and it looks like they actually were wrapping up, which it certainly so far doesn't look like to me. I think whether the individual complex is doing this or whether, in fact, there's much of this going on all over the Bay Area, I'm not certain. It's very difficult to see why these were ever allowed in the original March 16th, 2020 order. If the authorities, the health people genuinely believe what they're saying, that this is an unusually deadly disease, the coronavirus and the COVID-19 disease, that it has a much higher mortality rate than the mortality rate of most, common colds and influenza and other diseases that kill something like 55,000 Americans every year, and those diseases kill mostly elderly people and people with various health issues and problems, just like is being reported for the coronavirus. It's nothing new, and elderly people die from pneumonia every year in substantial numbers. It's not a new phenomenon. However, the claim is being made that this is an unusually deadly virus compared to the ones we normally deal with, compared to other coronaviruses which human beings have, which cause essentially the common cold and which have been around and infecting people for several years, many years. If they genuinely believe this, / it's actually true, but if they genuinely believe this, it's very difficult to see why this was ever allowed, and it's difficult to see why it's continuing following this order in practice. That order is certainly now very specific and seems to preclude projects like the one across the street from me, which at least so far appears to be continuing. I'll just add the usual professional disclaimer, even though this is more of a opinion piece. I'm not a doctor, or anything like that. If you need any kind of medical, legal, financial, or other professional advice, seek an appropriately qualified, licensed person like a medical doctor or attorney. regardless of what the exact truth is of the coronavirus, respiratory illnesses are very serious. They are the eighth leading cause of death in the United States. They do kill young people, although they're concentrated among older people, as the statistics show, and as appears to be happening with coronavirus. So take it seriously, seek appropriate medical attention, listen to the authorities. I would say also my own personal experience. I had a respiratory illness that I went to the hospital for about several years ago. It was never fully explained, but it was quite serious. And so I can say from personal experience to be very careful with these diseases and seek appropriate, qualified, professional advice, medical doctors, and so forth. That concludes this video. If you like this video, please take a moment to click like. Please click subscribe and the notification bell if you would like to receive more content from us. We welcome constructive feedback and comments. Mathematical software is developing products and services to automate data analysis, reducing the risks of costly errors and improving results. If you want to support our work, you can subscribe on our Patreon page. This is the URL for our Patreon page. Scan the QR code in the lower right corner with your smartphone to get the Patreon link. Our Patreon link is also in the show notes below.